Hey, how's that? Hi there, this is Dave Gershman. Welcome back to Reselect, the music podcast that delves back in time to, anywhere from last year to 50 years ago or more. We don't really actually have a time constraint. I think we've kind of spread it out a bit between 60s up through, I think we've even done a couple in the 2000s. So don't hold your breath for your favorite album. Request it. The odds of you hearing an album you're waiting to hear us talk about jumps exponentially, infinitely. It jumps a lot. The odds are much higher if you actually request an album that you'll get to hear a specific album. Anyway, it's mid-January as I record this. The episode you're about to listen to is The Faces. A wink is as good as a nod to a blind horse. No, a nod is as good as a wink to a blind horse. I don't know how I got that mixed up, but it's not that hard, I guess. But anyway, the actual recording of this was in person and something like a year ago. So we are trying to catch up here, and it's not going terribly fast. But hope you enjoy listening to this one. The last time we spoke, the presidential election was, oh my God, has it been that long? I'm sorry. The presidential election was still up for grabs. The last thing I said was, next time I talk to you, we'll know. Well, we certainly know that, and we know a whole lot more, and I'm not even going to get into it. But I think that the important part is that in a few days, we'll have a new president. The Faces, a band I'm quite fond of in many ways. When they were great, they were really great. And this is one of their classic albums we'll be talking about with the usual cast, me, Eric, and Sarah. So sit back and relax. Take a break from your working at home or your commuting. Let the music pour over you and our voices. I don't know if that's a good thing, but we'll be back soon with the next episode. And I won't tell you what it is. It's a surprise. Okay, bye.
I don't think I've used the word preposterous before.
Preposterous. It's a good word.
Yeah. Were you recording already? Because there was some funny stuff we just said.
I think I started after some of the really
He's not going to put it in there if it's us bashing on him. He's the editor. He gets to control it. It's the thing where we're like saying things and then our voice changes to like, you're so great, Dave.
Or just leave out the not, like you're not so great.
Yeah,
Dave.
exactly.
Like, you're so awesome, Dave. Like,
yeah.
Sounds a little choppy, but you know.
Remember when you wrote that awesome email that we all loved?
Funny. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I am Dave Gershman. Welcome back to Reselect. I am here with
Eric Green, and hello there.
And Sarah Wassel. I'm also here.
We're all here.
Yeah. And I have new glasses on, and neither of you guys said anything about it.
Oh, man, so rude. They look very
I was
nice.
getting to
Thanks.
that.
They look very nice.
Thanks. I was afraid they were
I
old
did
lady
actually
glasses.
No, they're
Yeah.
very
No,
stylish.
no.
And I like the little stem on the side.
Right?
Also
Little
very
sparkles
decorative.
on the side?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, see, Dave didn't notice. He had to lean over
I was
away from
busy.
his mic,
I was a little busy
hooking up all the plugs.
hooking up all the plugs.
It's very
They're very nice.
industrious.
I like them.
Thanks. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Enough about Sarah.
Were you saving that up for when we started?
I was just adding some human flavor.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think I'm a robot.
So we are gathered here today to talk about the album. It's a great title, I think. But I do. I don't know why, but
It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. A nod is as good as a wink to a blind horse.
You know it's
By
from Monty.
Faces.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know that line's from Monty Python, right?
I didn't
No,
know
it's
that.
not.
Yeah, it is.
No, that came after. It actually is an 18th century phrase that they actually said not as good as a wink to a blind bat.
Right.
That was their thing.
British are so quirky.
Yeah, I actually looked that up because I was curious. In fact,
Yeah.
I can tell you the.
I was hoping you would.
The prominence
I
of
will.
it. A nod is as good as a wink to a blind bat.
Yeah, that's what they said, which was just a joke because that's not actually part of the.
Why do you think it was Monty Python?
Because they have a sketch.
Yeah.
The one where they're
Yeah.
in the bar and
Nudge,
he's like,
nudge.
know what I mean? Know what I mean? Know what I mean? Not
Oh,
as
yeah.
good as a wink.
Yeah,
It's all about sex.
There's apparently references that go back to 18th century in British literature, and it means basically if someone's not going to get the point, it doesn't matter what you say.
Oh, I feel personally attacked by that album title.
Well, and not as good as a wing to a blind horse.
I am not a blind horse.
The other usage of it actually is a little bit different, but sometimes people use it in the sense that it's so obvious that no further explanation is necessary.
Ugh, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
It just sounds like what they would call their album.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
A little foreshadowing here.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, let me... I thought a little historical setup here would be useful for talking about the Faces. So they began back in the 60s, or mid-60s, as the Small Faces, and they were the other big mod band besides The Who. And they had a very big hit that you probably know called Itchy Coo Park. Does that ring a bell offhand?
No.
You'll recognize it instantly, though. I'm about to play it.
What's the title again?
Itchy Coo Park.
Itchy Coo Park. You didn't get that?
Just wait till the chorus. You'll recognize that problem.
Yeah, am I getting it yet? Okay,
Yeah.
Never heard it.
No?
Mm-mm. So is that Rod Stewart singing backup?
No, Rod Stewart was not in the group then.
Oh, okay.
Rod Stewart and Ronnie Lane were not in the group. It was the other three, plus Steve Marriott, who actually went on to... He's the lead singer. Mm-hmm. He went on to form Humble Pie with Peter Frampton, which is Peter Frampton's pre-solo introduction.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to play one other quick one just because
Sure.
This is a great song. Lazy Sunday.
Oh, this one I think I know.
I love the acoustic guitars in here and stuff.
Wouldn't it be nice to get on with me neighbours? But they make it very clear they've got no room for
Very British. He was playing up his Cockney accent and in response to somebody's comment to him.
Actually, I don't know this song. This is like a whole vein of British music that I've never pursued.
It's a very British.
Yeah.
It comes from an album called Ogden's Nut Gone Flake.
Oh my God! What is even happening? I think we all just turned British.
It was a famous, it's a well-known psychedelic concept album, and it's this really wild thing. It's got all these little spoken bits in between, and they have this famous British, I guess he's like a radio personality, and he just speaks in these sort of like Alice in Wonderland nonsensical, like Jabberwocky kind of sentences, and it's really actually quite entertaining. But it's a weird album. It's just like very sort of all over the place. But that's sort of what they were like then. And that was
Icky what park?
Itchy
Coo Park.
Itchy
Coo Park.
That's pretty funny how the chorus is like, I got high and then I cried. Like what an emotional roller
It's all too
coaster.
beautiful. It's like, oh, everything's
Yeah. Well, I'm glad he was
great.
crying because it was pretty. That's nice.
Yeah.
I thought he was just really sad.
So they were very big on the mod scene. Which, Eric, are you familiar with the mods? That's the early Who stuff is all. Uh-huh. They were like the band of the mods, and the mods at the time were sort of comparable to punk, and
it was like a social kind of group, like a style related. You know, it was like dudes in suits with long hair, with little ankle boots, and like riding scooters.
They were stylish. Scooters were
Yeah.
a big part of it. And if you ever saw the movie Quadrophenia,
not familiar with that.
Well, you know the album Well, there's the Who album Quadrophenia.
Right.
Is another one of their concept albums, and it focuses on the mod scene.
So the mods is a characteristic.
It was a cultural
people
movement.
Yeah, it's like if you say
okay.
if you see a group of people and you're like, oh, there's a bunch of hippies. Oh, there's a bunch of mods.
Yeah,
Oh, there's a bunch of
yeah.
rockers. That was
Gotcha,
another kind of
okay.
subsect.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a bunch of skinheads. You know, like that kind of grouping.
So
And
the
it was
mods.
but this is, we're talking about contrary to like present day where we can see everything online and see and nobody kind of really fits in those kinds of groups as clearly anymore. this is like post World War II Britain, you know, these are like the first young generation after their parents all fought in the war. And so like guys growing their hair out and wearing weird clothes and getting into weird music was a really huge deal socially to like break with the way you're supposed to do things, because Britain is incredibly entrenched, or had been, about the way you do things. And after having gone through 2 wars and all those people fighting and dying and leaving and coming back, everything was very like, this is the way you do things. And then in the 60s, boom, it went like nuts. And the Beatles and the Mods and like all of these people like making a new direction and doing things that previous generations would have just been like,
Exactly. Like too frivolous or something.
Yeah, now I know what that reference is.
So Kenny Jones, the drummer, Ian McLaughlin, the keyboard player, and Ronnie Lane, the bass player for the later Faces, were in the original band as well. Steve Marriott, the lead singer, quit the group. And then the other 3, after a little experimentation with other stuff, they brought in Ronnie Wood and Rod Stewart, who were both playing in the Jeff Beck band. Rod Stewart had sung on a couple albums for Jeff Beck. And Wood had played bass for them, but he played guitar coming into the Faces. And, of course, Ronnie Wood, as I think we all know, is the Rolling Stones guitarist. After he left the Faces, he became their other guitarist, replacing Mick Taylor. Kenny Jones was also later the Who's drummer after Keith Moon died. He was on a couple of their albums, Face Dances and It's Hard in the early 80s. A lot of people didn't really think he was a very good drummer, but not necessarily for the Who. I mean, well, everybody, you know, when you have Keith Moon as your drummer, it's a little hard to live up to any of that. So the Faces, as they became, once they were with Rod Stewart and Ronnie Lane, they were tended more toward the bar band kind of music than the psychedelic stuff that the Small Faces had been kind of leaning toward. And
that's pretty obvious.
They developed a reputation as like one of the most fun-loving bands in England and enjoyed themselves quite a bit on the road. Developed a reputation for trashing hotels and stuff, much like Led Zeppelin. And
Fun-loving.
Well, they were, you know, whereas like the Stones had like dark people, I was thinking, you know, Jagger and Richards are kind of like have this very dark side to them.
You mean interesting?
In their songwriting, and
as opposed to just like, yeah, we're just out for a good time. Hey, bird. Like I watched an interview with these dudes around the time that they made this record, and they're just like hanging out, and everyone's got a blonde under his arm, and they're just like, yeah, you know, what's a star anyway? We're not, you know, it's not important. We just want to play. We just like the music. And they like, yeah, okay, I get the attitude of like, we're just out for a good time. But guess what? You also have nothing to say. Like, except like putting your arm around this chick next to you. Like, it seemed very like, they seemed like a real drag.
No, I wouldn't agree with that. I think they were Rod Stewart and Ronnie Lane are very intelligent songwriters, and I think they, in some songs at least, Ronnie Lane more than Rod Stewart maybe, they had quite a bit to say, I think. I mean, not like,
well, they might, yeah, maybe in their songwriting, sure, that's one thing. But I just mean like the persona, the real life persona of just, you know, like we're just out to have a good time and it's not important and we don't really care, and like, you know, it's not important that people like our, you know, that we're famous or that we're getting a reputation or that people are into it. Like, it doesn't matter. None of that matters, man. You know, it's just like, to me, like this music has like the blues roots the same way like Zeppelin or whatever does. But Zeppelin's music is so much more interesting to listen to and feels so much more urgent and like epic. Whereas to me, these guys, there's amazing riffs. A lot of the songs have really good parts to them. Rod Stewart has a hell of a voice. Like you can't deny his voice is amazing. Yeah. It's weird. It's a weird voice. Yeah. Right? Like it's kind of like sounds like a woman, but not really. Maybe if she's been smoking cigarettes for like her entire, it sounds like an old lady.
Well, even his speaking voice is a bit on the, I don't know.
Is it similar to that?
It's less rough sounding, but it still has that. I mean, it definitely sounds like he's been smoking, and it's got a bit of a higher pitch to it slightly. But,
he's an amazing singer. It's mind blowing, right? Like listening to him, anything, you're just like,
very distinctive.
Yeah. Too, right? Oh, for sure.
I mean, I think during that period of the early 70s when he was with the Faces and like his first few solo albums, I think he was like just one of the best rock singers going at the time. Mm-hmm. I would literally, I mean, as much as I love the Stones, you know, I would take him over Mick Jagger and as a preferred vocalist. I mean, I think Mick Jagger's great, but
well, then so you listen to it. And to me, there's like technique and ability, and you can listen to someone sing and be like, that person is an amazing singer.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you're going to want to listen to their music.
Yeah.
Like I would still take Mick Jagger over Rod Stewart any day as a vocalist, just because I find his
what his
more
voice is attached to, more
well,
interesting.
Just no, and also like to me, Rod Stewart, like I hear him sing, and I think like, yeah, this is a great voice, but I feel no compulsion to listen to more of it.
Yeah,
that's just how it sits for me, and that's the subjective part of art, right?
Yeah,
like, it's
sure,
there's no definitive way to just answer that.
Of course,
but
yeah, I mean, I do like I love the music enough that it's I get a kick out of him every time I hear him. But then obviously he took a big turn for the worse in the late 70s when he just started getting kind of maudlin, and then disco, Do You Think I'm Sexy, and yeah. And he claims that was written in the third person. He wasn't really trying to like.
Does it matter?
People. No, it doesn't. It's a bad song. It's a bad song anyway.
No, it doesn't matter. It's a bad song.
But then he got just like he completely lost any relevancy later, because now he does just this like croony kind of thing and basically playing to the women over 70 crowd, and I think
his target demographic.
His target
from
demographic.
Always.
So he had a great era there, maybe 10 years from like the late 60s, not even 10 years probably, but late 60s to like mid 70s, and then it was downhill from there. But during that time, I mean, he was.
But when he was on, man.
He was on, man. He was at his best.
So can I tell a quick anecdote about Rod Stewart and my dad?
Okay.
Because my dad, I've told you guys this many times that my dad's where I got my love for listening to music from. So my dad, a couple of years ago, he found in a parking garage an entire box set of Rod Stewart's greatest, like forever, all of his greatest music. He just found it like in a parking garage.
Wow.
And he was so excited. For when I talked to him for the next 6 months, every time I talked to him, he'd be like, "You know what I'm doing? Listen to Rod Stewart. You know how much money I would have had to spend if I bought that for myself? It's so amazing. It's so good." It's pretty hilarious.
How many years worth of Rod Stewart albums?
I don't know. I didn't ask.
Yeah.
I didn't want to know. I should have. That's a much more substantive conversation. Yeah. I just was like, I can't, Dad. I don't want to listen to you talk about Rod Stewart anymore.
You said a comment a moment ago that kind of resonated with me. Once I was really excited about reviewing this album when you said the faces, and because I love Rod Stewart and a lot of his stuff. But like you said a little while ago, once I hear it once, I think I'm good for a little while.
Yeah.
So that kind of resonated with me. That hearing it a few times.
I don't know. I cannot get tired of this album. This album is just. I mean, there are parts that I don't care for as much. I mean,
you're already ahead because you're a dude listening to it. Because let me tell you, as a woman listening to this record, there's some shit on here that is real annoying.
Yeah.
Real offensive and problematic. I was talking to Rob about it, and I kept bringing it up, and he just goes, "Rod's got some lady issues."
They fit in very well with the whole that era, because there was a lot of misogyny in lyrics back then.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, Stones are super guilty of that as well. So
yeah, but this is the casual nature of this misogyny. Led Zeppelin pretty rough.
Is worse than the Faces.
I'm not, because this isn't a comparison.
But I'm just saying
there's a couple songs and many points on this record that listening, I'm like, fuck you, man.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, it's cringy to hear that stuff now, and all I'm saying is you have to.
Yeah, but the Beatles didn't do that. I mean, we know about all their offstage antics. Like, it's not like they were paragons of like treating people well.
Beatles,
but
John Lennon had a few moments with the Beatles where there are some songs that are kind of iffy too. But
yes, for sure. But nothing like I don't know.
No.
This
I mean, if you're
kind of pervasive,
I'm just saying, if you're not going to like the Faces because of that, you also shouldn't be liking Led Zeppelin at all. And
first of all, you can't tell me which ones I can pick and choose to like based on the way they talk about this stuff. And I'm not saying I don't like the Faces because they say these things.
I'm not saying you. I'm saying a person.
I think a person can do how they want. You know, some stuff hits and some stuff doesn't.
Sure.
And to me, the combination of the misogyny and the style of music is
bothers you more.
Yeah. Like, it's not good enough for me to like get through that part.
I guess I probably see where you're coming from on that, because like one of the songs that I'm pretty sure you're talking about is which one was it? Too Bad, I think, or it's the one we were talking about.
Well, Stay With Me.
One Night Stands. Well, Stay With Me. Yeah. Too Bad is sort of a
that's one where he's
one
like,
night stands.
Leave in the morning. You can stay, but leave in the morning. Or
no,
that's
Stay With Me. Yeah. I also do believe that some of those, and I'm not. It's not really a great excuse for it, but I'm saying I think there was definitely some tongue in cheek about that stuff. Yeah. I mean, right. It's not funny to a lot of people, but
no. I was laughing because the idea of like one night stand and tongue in cheek, like it's a funny. It's a sex joke.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry.
That's okay.
But I mean, I don't think that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the songs were written just as like they thought it was funny.
Yeah, that's the whole
but they
problem.
also aren't
That's
necessarily
what that means. That's what that casual misogyny is.
Yeah,
they thought it was funny. It was the time.
Yeah.
That's how people talked. Sure, those things are true, but it doesn't cancel out the fact that they did it and felt comfortable doing it and didn't think about it. I didn't have any second thoughts about it, and not just thought it and wrote it, but then spent time in the studio recording it, saying it over again, and listening to it. It's like a multi-layered reaction. Like on one hand, you're like, oh, okay, you're going to say that, and you clearly feel that. And then like the sense of them singing it at concert to a room full of people and everyone in the room being like, yeah, that's totally how it is. Yeah, that's you, Jezebel, with your funny, tired, ugly face. Like, dudes, what kind of a party is that? You know whose party it is? It's the men's party.
Yeah.
And everyone else is like a bit player in that party.
Sure. No, I mean, that's a very, very valid thing. And I totally feel the same way, except that somehow I'm still able to enjoy the songs because I know that from interviews and stuff, I also it's pretty evident that they aren't as misogynistic in real life as they are in song.
Yeah.
So
they go out of their way in interviews to be like, we know we say these things, but actually we have huge respect for the women that we've worked with in the industry.
Rod Stewart said to
and we
Katie
regret
Couric,
that we wrote shit songs about groupies.
No, I don't think they regretted it necessarily.
Of course not. Because they were like, I'm going to sing this song and I'm going to get hella laid, and all the other dudes high-fived them about it. Rod
Stewart said to Katie Couric in an interview that he's not a shagger-arounder. He said he was actually pretty upset that people thought he was like sleeping with every woman who came. I thought it was hilarious. Yeah. He said compared to Bill Wyman, who supposedly has like 2,000 women under his belt, so to speak. He said he's like
a shagger-arounder. Is that a direct quote?
Yeah. That's exactly what he said.
That's what the name of his haircut should be.
Yeah.
The shagger-arounder.
Anyway, so yes.
Katie Couric. That's really funny.
Well, she was like, it was kind of a silly, but it was like when it had to have been in like 90s or something, and she was like focusing an entire portion of her interview on his sex life. It was just kind of weird.
Well, I mean, he wrote a song, If You Think I'm Sexy and You Want My Body. Of course, you know what I mean? It's not like...
No, he brought it upon himself, certainly. But.
Right, it's not like a dark corner of his songbook. Speaking of rock stars being interviewed, though, I heard Terry Gross on NPR Fresh Air interview Keith Richards years ago.
That would have been interesting.
It's hilarious. At some point, she totally brings up like his relationship with Mick Jagger, and they're like, supposed feud fighting kind of thing that people mention but don't really talk about, and she tries to get him to talk about it, and he just chuckles and he goes, nice try, darling. Like he's 2 steps ahead of her the whole time, even though he sounds like he's like a drunk rambling old man. He's like, nope, you're not gonna get one on me.
Being cagey.
Yeah.
Well, actually that's funny because Mark Maron interviewed Terry Gross on her, and it was like broadcast on both his show and on Fresh Air.
Oh, interesting.
And she was very uncomfortable with the whole thing, although she agreed to it, but she's very private, very personal person. Mm-hmm. And he kept pointing out the irony of the fact that she's always trying to get stuff out of people, yet she won't. And every time he would try to get a little into her personal life, she would just like clamp up and kind of say, nice try, Mark, Anyway.
So let's listen to some of this damn album.
Yeah.
Which starts good. It starts real good.
Yeah. Well, let's start it the way it starts. Yeah, Miss Judy's Farm, which I think is...
That guitar is killer.
I like the distortion.
Well, Ronnie Wood, I love his guitar sound. I mean, the Stones did well choosing him for the replacement, but obviously he's still there.
It's still cool.
40 years later. Yeah, instrumentally, regardless of their lyrics.
Also, did Rod Stewart just yell guitar or get it? Because I thought the first couple times I listened, he was like, guitar! And then someone plays the guitar.
There's somewhere, I think on Stay With Me he says guitar.
Yeah. Lame.
Listen to that voice, that's so good.
I am listening to that voice. You know what that voice is saying? Miss Judy, she was moody. Or I'm sorry, Miss Judy. She was Moody. That's
one of my.
It's not stellar songwriting, you guys.
Oh, it's a fun song. Come on. No, actually, this song is weird. It's sort of like it's like he was working on a sex farm, basically. Which is the name of a song by Spinal Tap.
Sex Farm?
Yeah. There's a Spinal Tap song, Sex Farm, that was very funny. And this isn't too far removed from that, really. This is my favorite lyric right here. She had a cross-eyed poodle. I'm not into kicking animals, of course, but I just thought that was like so ridiculous.
Well, poodles are the punching bags of the dog.
Sure,
worlds.
yeah. So I want to point out here too, the keyboards, their faces are fantastic because Ian McLaughlin was their keyboard player, and he's just an amazing instrumentalist. I think that really is a key defining factor of their musical sound. I actually saw him in Austin a few years ago. He died the year after I saw him. It was like 2013, but he had this residency in the Lucky Lounge in Austin, and he would just be there with his keyboard and just playing all these songs, some Faces, Stones, lots of other things. I mean, he was just most entertaining, one of the most entertaining evenings I've had. He was such a good piano player, and sadly he's no longer with us. But anyway, he was with the Small Faces too, and and then he became a Stones sideman throughout their touring career after that. So. All right, pause that there.
A weird lyric.
That's kind of a jam and tune, though. It's a great intro to the album, though.
It is. It is. I always I get a little uncomfortable with the white English boys singing about farm songs in the South.
Yeah,
it's in the South U.S.
It happens. It seems to be a thing.
Tom Jones has a weird song where he sings it's like an old standard that a lot of people cover about coal mining.
Yeah,
and it's just it's strange to listen to them sing about things in America that are like deep rural
there does seem
experiences.
There's a fascination with that, and I think it goes back to the 60s musicians got really into the American blues, and that is really what sparked the whole Stones
and raised so many of those dudes out of kind of an obscurity that they were languishing in. Yeah. Howlin' Wolf and Buddy Guy and Bo Diddley and Robert Johnson.
Yeah,
like all those guys, those British teenagers got into them and then like got into their music. And,
right, and they exposed a lot of other people to that music.
Totally.
And so I think they felt some sort of connection there and felt comfortable dealing with the same subjects that the blues musicians were dealing with. And and you're right, it translates a little strangely sometimes. You know, it's there are farms on in England, of course, but it's clearly a very different situation.
So what's weird about it to you is that what the hell do you guys know about this?
Kind of, yeah. And like this, the second line of the song is ran a sweaty farm in old Alabama. I was just 18, crude and mean. Like, I get it. You could sing a song about a thing that you haven't necessarily lived. But to me, it just rings a little strange, like British, specifically British kids singing about that. That's a pretty intense American experience.
Right.
It just seems a little weird to me.
Yeah. I mean, and it definitely has overtones of singing like from a black experience. I mean, until I looked closer at the lyrics, I thought maybe it was even like a slave reference, like first person.
Sure, it can read that way.
I think
so, yeah.
And looking closer at the lyrics, I'm not sure that's true, but it could be. So the next song is "You're So Rude" by Ronnie Lane, and his songs are very different than the other songs are written mostly by Stewart and Ronnie Wood. A lot of Ronnies in this band. So Stewart and Wood have very, a style that's closer to like what the Stones typically do. Ronnie Lane tends toward slightly more like music hall, that British music hall thing that Ray Davies and sometimes Paul McCartney. Elvis Costello. There's a lot of that in his songwriting. And "You're So Rude" is a very funny song, actually, I think. The first verse I love. The later part of it is him, like, he and his girlfriend getting it on at his home, and then suddenly they're interrupted by somebody coming in the house, and they're trying to, like, he says, "Quick, wet your socks, make it look like we're out in the rain." And but the first verse,
that's a weird. Is this a trick we don't know about? Like, is this some kind of British teen boy trick, like the sock on the doorknob or something? Yeah. It's the like, quick, put your socks in the sink.
There are two ways you can read the first verse: that he is either just trying to convince her to come to his house, or he's saying like she's just said to him, "Oh, your mom hates me, your family hates me." And so here's the verse. My mom, she likes you. She thinks you're swell. Got the makings of a dance hall girl. Your low-cut frock and your bird's nest hair. Stiletto heels and the way that you swear. She says to take you back to see my folks again. And then there's a long pause there. On Sunday. So the funny part is like imagining the mom actually complaining about this girlfriend of his and say, bring her back on Sunday and she can come to church with us and we'll reform her.
Well,
but then the other thing is maybe he's just trying to get her back on Sunday when his parents won't be around,
because they're at church.
At church.
Yes, clearly that's a reading of it. I also kind of in my heart hoped for a scenario where his mom was hella cool and actually did like all these things about this girl and met her and was like, I get this chick, like she looks good. She's got her hair in the style all teased up and like she's got a mouth on her, but she's still smart. Like, in my heart, I hoped that was the scenario. And then by the end, when he's like scrambling around and getting his socks wet, I'm like, no one's smart enough in this scenario to have that version of it.
Ronnie Lane is a really interesting character in the band because his voice is so not traditionally like a great rock voice. It strains a bit, but from my other experience with him, he's got this great record with Pete Townsend called Rough Mix. The two of them did this, I want to call it solo, but duo album, whatever, after the Faces broke up. And he's just such a lovable character. He's like, and he's the one in the band who's got like the most emotions in his songs.
His song Debris is my favorite on the record.
That's a great song. And we'll get to that.
The most interesting song on the record for sure.
He's really, he wears his heart in his sleeve a lot more than the others do by a long shot.
They're wearing something else somewhere else. Yep.
That's a good one.
Not as good as a wink.
Yeah. He also, just to look at him, he's like a hobbit. He looks like he could easily play the lead. He's this little guy.
Aww.
The Small Faces were called the Small Faces. The Small Faces were the Small Faces because they were all under 5'5". And when Rod Stewart and Ronnie Lane came into the band, they were 5'9" and 5'10" apparently. And so like they were suddenly towering over the others. So anyway, he's this little guy. He's got this little very hobbity face. If there had been a live version of the movie made in the 70s, he could have been cast for it, I think. But
in Small Faces, his nickname was Plonk.
Plonk, that's right. And he had another nickname in the Faces. I forget what it is.
Three-piece.
Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe he wore suits a lot or something. I don't know. So I'm going to play a little of that You're So Rude song we were just talking about. And again, you get that great groove going right away with Ronnie Wood's guitar. His guitar sound, I love it so much. And Ronnie Lane is a great bass player as well.
My mom, she likes you. She thinks you're swell. Got the makings of a dance hall girl.
Seems like George Harrison.
Low-cut frock.
A little bit, yeah. With a lot more of a Cockney kind of accent or something.
Also Lou Reed. I get a lot of Lou Reed vibes from his voice too. Like the inflections of it. Big time.
Never thought of that, but maybe, yeah.
Why, it looks as though there's nobody in.
And then we get to this little play, basically. It's
Auntie Reenie, don't you worry, you just come right in. I'm sure we'll pass the time till they come home. Well, let me take your
wink, wink. I get a kick out of that song. I think it's
also
funny.
My notes.
It's
my notes say rude means sex.
You're so you're so rude.
I'm pretty sure that like vernacular and like kind of a slang term, like being rude means getting, being lewd, like getting into it a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely came to mind. But I also was thinking maybe she said something to him like she was pissed off at him for getting her into this situation to begin with.
Screw you in your wet socks. What is this bullshit?
Like, oh, you're so rude.
Yeah, that comment didn't seem to fit in there at all.
The wet socks.
You're so rude.
Yeah, no, I think
I totally see it as like a response to something she said to him because she's pissed. The album kind of flounders a bit after that, I think, for a couple songs. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the next two, Love Lives Here and Last Orders, Please.
I really like Rod Stewart's voice in Love Lives Here, though.
Yeah, but I think as a song, it's a little less interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a ballady.
Well, to be honest, I kind of felt that way about almost all of them.
I think Love Lives Here to me sounded like a late night slow dance in a cheap wood paneled sidebar, drunkenly slow danced to by a bunch of shapeless late aged people. Sounds like alcoholism.
Well, it's a wistful song about a failed relationship or something along those lines.
Yeah,
I
they
think,
pick Dave's definition, pick mine. What else?
Yeah. I like your take on it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
One line
How long did it take you to come up with that?
Not long. That just I spit that right out when I was listening to that
and
song.
the opinion didn't change as you listened.
Not really. No. I mean, it's a good song structurally.
Sure.
You know, the chorus sounds pretty good. His voice sounds great. But yeah, essentially, it just feels like that to me.
I sort of liked one turn of phrase in there. It's the last lines in the song. All the vows that we made count for old bags of lumber.
I wrote that down too.
Disappear on the
fuck
cart
does that
down the
mean?
road. Well, I think he's basically saying that those vows are as worthwhile as they count as much as some old bags of wood. Where you come up with bags of wood, I'm not sure. Maybe that's a thing in England, though. So, The Last Orders, Please is another Ronnie Lane song, which his unpolished vocals are kind of charming in a way, but
there's some honky tonk piano in there. I'm not super into.
And that one was definitely it's the one that made me think most about the music hall stuff, especially Ray Davies type stuff.
I thought it sounded like a low rent Beatles song.
Yeah, here, I'm gonna just play a few moments of it, just refresh my memory. Actually, yeah, to me it sounds more like a Kinks song than maybe a low rent Kinks song than a low rent Beatles song.
Well, hello. And how are you? Fancy seeing you here.
Yeah, that's about it. We don't need to play much more of that, but
I got about that far a lot of times and hit the next.
anyway, Stay With Me is that was their biggest hit. And it went to number 17 in the U.S. So not a massive hit, but it was on the radio a lot. It's probably the first Faces song I was ever aware of. I was listening to radio, at least casually, even when I was really young, so I probably heard it then. But as far as knowing it was the Faces and stuff, probably 11, 12, 13, I don't know, early teens maybe. Musically, it's a great song. I think it's got a very almost a punky energy to it. It starts out with that really driving guitar, and then it shifts into this other gear, piano and stuff, and it slows down. I'm pretty sure it goes to a whole different tempo altogether, but I think it's a pretty masterful transition.
I'm just glad they did it because I'm not super into songs that have that rolling on the river kind of driving
The
rhythm
whole
to
time.
it.
Yeah,
that to me it's just not. It's nothing I can nod my head to. It's just too fast and frenetic, and I just feel like those kind of songs are for the band that's playing it. They're super into it, and
right.
everybody's playing really
and
hard.
Probably great in a live live setting, but to listen to a lot. And actually, the main heart of the song is actually a fairly slow tempo, but it sounds rocking because of the instrumentation and stuff. As we've already touched on, it's about one night stands and groupies and pretty much misogynistic.
You won't need too much persuading. I don't mean to sound degrading, but with a face like that, you got nothing to laugh about.
I've always wondered. I'm sure it means essentially what we think it means, but the laugh about, I don't like. I mean, she shouldn't be having a good time because she's ugly, yeah. Well,
maybe he likes the way she looks from the neck down, but not the neck up, which would make sense because clearly the party's not interested in a woman is what's going on in her head.
And clearly he's aware of that because he says, "Don't mean to sound degrading." So,
except
so he knows that he is sounding
the
degrading.
most pandery nonsense.
Well, right. Well, I mean,
I said degrading, so now we're good, and I'm being a decent guy.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that's where that was coming from,
And I bet that part of the reason this song became a moderate hit is because it's got this joke aspect to it. It's the kind of song that when it came out, I'm sure people listened to it and were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he's saying that. Ha 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 ha." Let's listen to it again. I wouldn't give it cred just for the merit of the songwriting. It's definitely got a story beat to it that would be funny for dudes high-fiving each other and slapping each other on the back.
Before this podcast here, it was the first time I ever sat back and really listened to the words and found out what it was saying actually.
Mm-hmm.
But when I've heard it in the past, I heard "Stay with Me," and it sounded like, oh, it's kind of romantic.
Right, you're right. That's
and it's
it.
very
Does sound like that.
singable as well,
yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And so I think that's a lot of its popularity. I think, or I suspect anyway, that a lot of people out there aren't as into listening to the words and don't know actually what he's talking about. And they hear the "Stay with Me," and it sounds like, oh, this is really
It sounds
wonderful.
like romantic, and
Yeah.
like you just think about putting
and
your arm
his
around
voice is
someone.
just really
Yeah,
wonderful to listen
totally,
to,
totally. And it's a great like song wise. It sounds
Yeah.
good and fun,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
just kind of want to like get
And
into
so
it.
after reading the words of it, I was like, I don't like this song too much anymore.
Well, it's like listening to Lola by the Kinks, you know, like really reading the lyrics start to finish. That story was vastly different than what I had understood it to be. And the same thing, like it just,
Yeah.
you get the chorus in your head and you hear it for so long on the radio or whatever around.
But
and
I
then
don't-
at some point you're like, oh.
I don't see Lola as offensive though.
No. I don't mean it's offensive. I just mean it's a very different
than what you think
story
it- yeah,
than
right.
when you just listen to the like highest points
right,
of it.
Right. The chorus, the
easiest
sing-along
points of
parts.
it.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Then you're like, oh, this is a fun thing that's happening, and then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
actually, this story
It's true.
is not
right. And really, what he's talking about is "Stay with me tonight."
right.
Yeah.
And he's talking to them
And get the
as
hell
he's
outta
meeting
here
them.
by
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah,
exactly.
In the morning, that's how it opens. In the morning, don't say you love me, cause I'll only kick you out the door. There's no punches pulled. There's
Well,
no
and-
even hint
and
of
there's this
like
part,
anything. It's just straight up from the beginning.
and this is very succinct part, which I think basically is describing the sex itself. It says, "Sit down, get up, get out." It's like,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah, which is funny, but also like.
it's only funny to some people.
Yeah, like I said, the extra, you know, there's the levels to it. There's the one level
Yeah,
of listening to the words, and the other level of just picturing a group of people in a room together working on the recording of it, and just being like, "Yeah, this is so funny."
Does Brown Sugar bother you at all by the Rolling Stones? Because that is super offensive.
I've never really gotten into the Stones.
Really, I thought you were a big fan.
No,
Oh.
I have a huge amount of respect for them.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to avoid them.
Oh, interesting.
But in my head, in my personal enjoyment of music, there's like a split of like Beatles, Zeppelin kind of side of things, and then there's like a Stones Who kind of other side of things. And I love blues, but I'm not into that like janky, loose, honky tonk, British bluesy rock and roll kind of vibe. It just doesn't do it for me. I get why it's good and that people like
Yeah.
it and it's hugely popular. Just not my.
That's funny. I would actually group the Who with the Beatles and the Led Zeppelin with the Stones more as far as like subject matter and songwriting. But I get your point. And so the Stones, yeah, the like Brown Sugar. It's just when you read the lyrics, it's just like super racist and misogynistic and they're honky tonk women and there's a lot of stuff. It is kind of hard to listen to when you think about it too much. If you just sort of like try to like set that, turn off that little part of your brain, which I try to do for this song. But I'm going to play a little just because instrumentally.
Oh shit! Yeah, I'm looking up the Brown Sugar lyrics.
Yeah.
Yowza.
Yeah. That guitar and that whole way it just kicks in there is just awesome.
That's nice.
And then Ian McLaughlin's keyboard as he brings it down to the next tempo. Here it comes. That's such a great transition.
So
I love
great.
it. Yeah.
It's really great.
Yeah. He is a master of interjections and like exclamations or master. I'm saying that
It sounds more personal that way. I really enjoy
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, he's just loving it. I mean, you just know he loves singing rock and roll, and that's really all he ever wants to do. Or well, at the time, anyway. Oh, he knows her name. That's one. That's more than some people. Sarah just rolled her eyes.
I didn't. I
no.
didn't roll them.
No.
You told me I'm not allowed to.
No, I expected it. I expected it there because I was being tongue in cheek myself.
That like I wanted to roll my eyes so hard that they didn't actually move.
They did this 360 roll that I couldn't even detect.
Yep, exactly. It was seismic egg roll.
Yeah.
Egg roll.
Egg roll.
Seismic eye roll. I just picture him slapping her on the ass and her being like, what the? And then he'd be like, come on. Don't get upset. Come on.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of the audience, the women in the audience in particular, weren't listening to the words either. They were like, it's Rod Stewart, and he's saying, stay with me. And it worked,
Yeah,
definitely.
I could see that. Well,
Well, I mean, and, you know,
well,
to be fair, there are obviously a subgroup of those women who were interested in staying with him.
Well, sure. I mean,
he's
that's
a good-looking guy.
That's a reading too. Like, you know, there's a world where, you know, she was having a good time too, except for the way that the stuff he says about her face and the way that I
know
there's no,
he could have done it without being as insulting.
yes,
Certainly.
yes, that is pretty much the bottom.
He could have
line.
made it clear that there was more mutual enjoyment going on and respect or whatever of some sort.
Yeah, because there's, you know, like the weird part about it is that like there's songs like this where it's like a man singing like, you know, I don't want you here in the morning, get out right away. And so you're objectifying and being insulting, and you're also slut shaming at the same time.
Yeah.
Because like there are plenty of people who just
yeah.
want to get with someone and have sex and move on. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just people being people. So like to like turn it into a shameful, dirty thing to make fun of and treat someone badly about is like, why? Just do it.
Right.
Have a good time.
Right.
Or even just like stay with
just,
me. Let's have fun and enjoy each other. And tomorrow morning, shake hands and
never
go
talk
on
to
our
her again.
merry ways
Exactly.
and just celebrate the fact that we had a good time together.
Right.
And now
You
we
be
can
kind about it.
Yeah. Now we can move on with our lives.
There's zero reason to be so demeaning about it.
Yeah, there's just a whole structure inherent, a whole social
Yeah.
structure inherent in this attitude that's really regrettable.
It's definitely a rock star attitude. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and our friend Kim Deal said that without misogyny, the entire music industry would just fall apart.
So the song after that is Ronnie Lane's Debris or Debris or Debris.
He says Debris.
He said Debris. And I think that's the British pronunciation for the word. I would say Debris. Mm-hmm. Knowing their catalog pretty well and some of his solo stuff, it's one of his best songs ever. It's a beautiful song, I think. Mm-hmm. And it turns out it's about his father. And it's sung eulogy, but, you know, it just a tribute to his dad. And I read a little bit about this, and his dad was a bus driver right after World War II, trying to support his family. Ronnie's mom had multiple sclerosis, and that's what killed him, actually, too.
Yeah, he had
Eventually.
diagnosed with MS, like 20 years of him.
Yeah, and he was, there were several concerts to raise money for MS and stuff in his name, like Pete Townsend and
that's cool.
Eric Clapton was part of it. I mean, he had a lot of friends come up with all these same guys in the 60s. And so his dad was trying to support them all. And the dad's wife was disabled for the most part. So apparently in London after World War II, there were flea markets that would set up on the rubble of the bombings. And so his dad would go to these flea markets and root around trying to find cheap bargains for the family. So that's what he's talking about when he's saying, I left you on the debris. You know, he left you.
That makes more sense
like,
to me all of a sudden.
yeah. Although, you know, you can certainly read other meanings into it, like the debris of a family. In addition to London being bombed, the whole family was like in disarray or whatever, you know, like the remnants of what had previously been his life, you know. So at one point he also wonders what his dad's life would have been like if he hadn't had to support the family, I think. And that's the last verse. He says, but I left you on the debris. Now we both know you got no money, and I wonder what you would have done without me hanging around. And I just find that a little heartbreaking, you know, like he sort of wishes his dad had been able to have a less.
You know, that's interesting. I had a total
life.
different read of that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my read was that he was sitting on the steps waiting for his dad to get home, like that he waited up for him. Mm-hmm. And I think I read some stuff to that effect. That he really like, and so it was more like what you would have done without me. Like, how much worse would it have been for you if I didn't wait up for you?
That's certainly one take on it too. Yeah, I mean, it's well, because he says earlier, I heard your footsteps at the front door, and that old familiar love song, because you knew you'd find me waiting there at the top of the stairs. Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, there's that too. He's just like he's waiting for his dad to come home, and his dad, you know, clearly had a loving family to come back to. But I think also maybe he also wished his dad could have had a less stressful life of having to support them all
Well, I think it works both ways, which is great. I mean, that's the hallmark of a really, really good songwriting, right? Is that it has enough meaning that it paints a really deep story, but then also you can kind of ascribe different meaning to it easily because it's just vague enough, right?
Yeah.
He did say about his dad too, like his dad was like, if you want to have friends, learn to play an instrument because then you'll have friends your whole life. That's such a sweet thought.
Yeah, clearly felt very close to his dad. And he had one of the really good lines from the song is, "I've been there and back and I know how far it is." He really can identify with his dad.
Yeah, musically it was a nice song also.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Beautiful guitar parts. And let's play a little bit.
Yeah, let's hear that. It's really pleasant.
Left you on the debris.
And even though this isn't Rod Stewart, I think it might be my favorite song on the album.
Mm-hmm. It is definitely
Me too.
one of the high points, yeah.
It's my
If
favorite.
not the high point, yeah.
For sure. It's the song that made me kind of re-question my assessment of the rest of it,
Nice.
which I'll explain when we're...
Yeah.
I heard your footsteps at the front door.
And I really, even though he was pretty unpolished vocals, I really love them. I think they're just very good emotion. I know they feel heartfelt usually. Like,
Yeah,
just
it feels very honest
Yeah,
and very
honest, yeah.
genuine and heartfelt, and
Yeah.
kind of like the lack of polish is what makes it even more so, I
right,
think.
right. And then
I forgot about how beautiful that is.
it's the only place we hear Rod in the song.
He's a great backup vocalist.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, they have a few parts that they sing together. It's really good.
More trouble at the depot.
Oh yeah, he talks about the union strikes and the difficulties his dad's going through with the job.
And you said they'll never change a thing. Well, they won't fight, and they're not working.
So the reason it made me kind of rethink my angrier assessment of the rest of the record is just like these like good time white dudes playing music with each other and like having a good time at the expense of pretty much anybody else. The poignancy of this song being in a post-war world, that these kids growing up with the city and rubble around them, it's very working class. It's very kind of sparse emotionally, right? Like you feel that like what we can even only imagine it must have been like living through that war and then growing up as a child in that world after it. And so in that, when you look at it from that context, like I can see why you would just want to write songs about having a good time and not care or think about it, because you had been through so much misery and there was so much gray and misery around you still that, like, you know, who cares about anything? Like, if we can play music and like make it feel good, make ourselves feel good for a little while.
Forget about what we're looking at. Right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and a lot of that generation of British rockers who grew up in London in particular. They went through that, and it was like Elvis Costello. You hear about. He was a little after, but he still
A little after, Rod
he
Stewart
still
was born in
experienced some of that
54,
too.
so a little after as well.
But when Elvis
that's
was
just
young,
numbers
they
on
were-
a dial, like that
Right.
after aspect.
Right.
Their parents would have
Exactly.
been shell shocked.
Yeah.
Their world was shell shocked.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Like 30,000 people died in London alone from those bombings, and that's just hard to comprehend. You know, you hear about the bombings, but I don't think I'd really realize what the human toll was on that.
Well, yeah, because the Germans, like, not only were they trying to win, but they deliberately were just
Shell-shocked, just
trying to destroy the
morale.
morale of the whole resistance in the whole country by just firebombing the whole city
Yeah.
and going after specific landmarks and specific historical structures too.
Right.
Like to really not just like physically torture people, but to emotionally and like culturally wreck them.
Yeah. Yeah, most of these guys, again, I'm referring to the British rock musicians, they were under 10 years old when this was happening, and many of them would have had some sort of memory of at least the after effects of the whole thing. So, yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
that was really insightful.
The next song is Memphis, cover of a Chuck Berry song, and I find it very boring. Very
Agreed.
boring.
Let's just
unless you're the Beatles or Dave Edmunds and Rockpile, don't do Chuck Berry covers because they always sound.
And I don't
dull.
even like the Beatles Chuck Berry covers.
They do a fantastic version of them, I think, but because they add this energy to them that is a different energy than Chuck Berry had, and it works really well for the songs. But I think leave Chuck Berry to Chuck Berry. And
it's pretty like egotistical to be like, I get it. Chuck Berry was a hero to all these guys, and that's amazing and completely appropriate. Right. But to like then be like, yeah, let's do one of his songs, and it sounds good enough to put on our record. Nah, maybe not, guys. Maybe not. And maybe check that.
It always feels like filler to me. Like it's just like, we've got no other song here. Let's just do a Chuck Berry cover. And they slow it down, so it's like twice as long as the original version.
Not only, but it's long.
It's more than twice as long, and it's just like, great musicianship. But sure, what doesn't matter.
I feel like also it probably would have been a product of a different music industry that we don't understand as much present day, because it would have been like, it probably would have given the record some kind of cred in some way that there was a Chuck Berry cover on it, or it would have been an indication to people at the time buying it. Also because, I think, was this still at the time when people could kind of just cover each other's songs? Like, I don't know when intellectual copyright law started coming into it, but for a long time in the music industry, you could hear a song and cover it and sell records on it, and there was no protection for the original writer of it.
Well, they just, I think they were paying royalties at this point. There was music
They might have been like in the 70s, sure, but before, there was a while, especially when Elvis was first starting out. Like around that time,
right, where
you just anybody could record anything,
and they were taking a lot from old blues songs and just not crediting the original stuff. So, just one more thing about Memphis is that it's actually a pretty sweet song as far as the but it's not theirs. I'm saying, obviously, Chuck Berry. It's one of Chuck Berry's more lovable songs in a way, because it's about his daughter. He's a divorced dad who.
And you don't pick that up till the end.
You don't pick it up. Yeah, it's a little like you think it's a love interest, but then you realize it's just his girl calling. His little girl calling and trying to get in touch with him, and he says he's been separated from the mom for however long, and so he's eager to like get in touch with her. So it's a nice little twist there. But
it was kind of cool listening to the song because wrote the message on the wall. Mm-hmm. That line stuck with me from when I first heard this as a kid. And when I heard that, I guess like, oh, that's where that came from.
yeah.
Elvis covers this too.
Did he do a cover?
Yeah. I don't know when.
Johnny Rivers had a big hit with it in the mid '60s. Same guy did Secret Agent Man, and all that. It was like his other big hit, really, I think, or maybe a couple more. But so the final two tracks on the album are Too Bad and That's All You Need. And as we already said earlier, Too Bad is another one of these fairly offensive songs lyrically. It's a very similar theme to Stay With Me, but musically, I think they're fantastic songs. They're like they play to all the strengths of the Faces, and to finish off the album with these two incredible rockers, they could easily have started the album with those two, and it would have been just as powerful. A great way to start an album, and they saved them to the end. Like I think Too Bad in particular is just a real distillation of everything that was great about the group.
Yeah, of the two of those, I like that one a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's one of their top songs, period, of any of their albums. I really like, there's a clapping intro where you hear some studio chatter. Glenn Johns, who produced the album, he's a producer, also did a lot of stuff for The Who and the Stones. You can hear him asking Ronnie Wood to let go of his guitar because it's like feeding back or something. But they've already started this clap in for the song, the intro, and they just keep going. I really enjoy the fact that they're so intent on getting this song started that they just keep whoever's clapping just keeps on doing it. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to keep clapping until we start this thing.
I love clapping in rock songs.
Yeah, I know we've talked about that. Mm-hmm. And then it's like slams into gear, and it's just. I'm just going to go ahead and play this intro.
Hopefully
here.
You'll do that. Oh, there was the opportunity to edit that out. And they just
right, exactly. They could have left that.
We should have a whole episode where we talk about studio chatter in between songs.
I know. And this is one of Rod's best vocal performances on record, I think, too. And then the way the acoustic guitar comes in to emphasize, it's so good. I just love the... There comes it. I just love that sound. So.
That's a bit of a Stone sound right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, or The Who.
Well, and and when I hear Stones sounds in there, I wonder, am I thinking of Stones after Ron Wood joined the group and added those touches himself, or am I thinking of the earlier? But I think it's a little bit of both. I think Keith Richards did some of that kind of stuff too. So. Actually, this song, now that I listened to it, I'm realizing this is a bit more about like trashing hotels, and there's a bit about like groupies and stuff, I think, too. But it's like, oh, we just wanted to go in there and have a good time, and the hotel kicked us out, and we got right here. I love this pause. And just it's like this, like you're not sure what's going on there because it's not a. It just sort of drifts off for a second. And bam. Sweaty girls, damp hotels. Anyway.
No, it's not Sweaty Girls. It's 20 Girls.
No, actually, it's not. I saw that too, but if you listen to it, it's definitely Sweaty Girls. Somebody missed.
I just didn't listen to it closely enough. Sorry.
Yeah. I listened several times to make sure I was right about it.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
Have anything particular to say about that, or just the?
Well, I really like the rollicky sound to it.
Yeah, I did too. There's like a little guitar lick at
Yeah.
the beginning I liked a lot.
Yeah. They're clearly great musicians, but their songs aren't like tight in the way that some great bands are. It's just sort of like there's a looseness to them that I really appreciate. But it's like all like they never really miss the beats. They're just like
it's like testimony to what good musicians they are. They can chime in whenever
right,
they feel
right.
like
They kind of like following along and just doing a. You don't get the impression that they like spent tons of time practicing. Like they get the song down and then they just say, let's just do this. And then that's all you need. I think back to back with Too Bad is just a really great closer. And again, his singing on this is some of the best of his career. Some really great slide guitar from Ron Wood and the organ work as well. I'm going to play a little of that too.
Okay, just don't go all the way to the end because at 2:57 some bad things start to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to go to 2:56.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Do it let's do a bit and then you should just skip ahead to there and see what starts to happen.
Okay.
It's terrible.
Okay. And there's like two verses of him singing with just the slide guitar, and then the band kicking in is just so good. Here you go.
Sit right down if you can spare me a minute. I got a tale that's bound to break your heart. Concerns my brother, who still have played violin.
Such good singing.
Got it in his head that an IQ was all you need.
I don't like the nerd bashing aspect of this song.
I'm not sure which.
He's just like talking about his brother's smart and plays violin, and clearly those are meant to be negative attributions.
I don't know. Well, he went off to the city and then came back and said, hey, it's a rough world out there, Rod. What? Wait a minute. That's just a great.
Okay, skip.
Okay.
Can you go to 2:57 or so? Can you bring it there?
Okay, so here we are at 2:47. Getting to your 2:56.
Awesome.
Yeah. That little yeah, that's great.
Where is it?
Was it a musical
Swear it's
thing?
in
or-
here. No, it's in here. Wait, there's a whole couple
The
things.
verse?
There's a couple things that start to happen musically.
Okay.
That's probably coming up.
Yeah. I think it gets to a point where it should have maybe ended.
Definitely.
Like this part doesn't really add much.
Oh. 257 was that rad distortion part. That was the
Oh,
cool part.
oh,
but
yeah.
there is stuff at the end that goes bad. There it is. Starts with the fork on the thing.
It's one of those, yeah.
And then, inexplicably, steel drums.
Oh, that's right. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
Who asked for that?
I did not order
Who
steel
needed
drums.
that?
I did not order steel
I mean, it
drums.
could
with
be
my
like
song.
vibes. It could be a xylophone, too. You know what I mean? But
I think that's steel drums.
steel drum, you guys.
Yeah.
I was all right with that. I really
No.
like that.
Mm-mm.
It seems a lot of
I
place.
think steel drums are good anywhere.
Oh, no. Really?
Still, I like steel drums
Well,
a
I
lot.
like- I like 'em
I
here.
do, but
Really?
it seems a
There's-
little. It seems a little excessive, really, in this
Yeah.
context. But
I wrote Y with 30 Ys when the steel drums
I only
came
put
in.
25 Ys.
I counted. I wrote them and then I counted because I just thought the whole time.
You know, here we are in the wintertime and the tropics sound really
No,
good. and the steel
nope,
drum
that has no
sound-
place in this song. Come on, this whole record, there's no tropical anything in this whole record. It doesn't even mention rum or coconuts.
We're talking about my
So,
personal preference.
This is
there.
okay. You get whatever you want for
I
that,
like some
but
steel drums.
I don't ever. Pretty much that maybe in a Disney movie where an animated crab is singing.
There's a lot of songs where they, at the end of the song, they do something different, and more frequently than not, it's like kicking up the tempo and suddenly they're racing to a finish, like it happens at Miss Judy's Farm. And I saw a quote from Ron Wood where he said, "Most of our songs, Stay With Me, Miss Judy's Farm, Too Bad, they start in one groove, build up energy, and then finished in double time. We'd go wahoo until the song burst." and that kind of describes a lot of it. And, except that one, it kind of slows it down. I don't think it really. I mean, it does speed up a little bit there, but it unnecessarily comes screeching to a bit of a slowdown.
So how did they go? What was it?
Wahoo!
That's a pretty good Wahoo, dude. I'll give you that.
So, and that's the entirety of the album. And
Well, and I wanted to add earlier on that Rod Stewart was the first real concert I ever went to. in
Oh, yeah?
Austin, Texas.
really,
Yeah.
what year do you know, or like what?
Yeah, it was 81 or 82,
Did he sing the sexy song?
maybe.
Oh, he must have. That was like 78, so 77, 78. I did want to. I just had a couple other little related notes that I wanted to bring up, and the Faces were doing this stuff around the same time that he started doing his solo career, and I was really torn as to whether to do this album or his Every Picture Tells a Story album, which is so good. And I just wanted to play a little bit of the beginning of that and Maggie May, which is on that.
I mean, I've heard Maggie May like a million times.
Yeah. But Every Picture Tells a Story is such a great song. And basically, the Faces were the band for these albums, too. So in a way, they are Faces albums. But I think contractually, he had to do it as a solo thing. Something like that. Woman that he hooks up with, and he seems to actually have a lot of affection for her. It's not like a one night stand necessarily, but it's just that makes me cringe. I just wish that part wasn't in the song.
You and a whole lot of other people probably feel that way.
I know. And that goes back to the same thing of the problematic with the Stones, and just it's just this insensitivity to.
Oh, he says it more than once.
He does twice, I think, actually. Yeah, it's a. Otherwise, the song is fantastic, but I do wish.
It's not really doing anything for
And then Maggie May has this fantastic intro solo, intro
nice.
thing. It's very English folk thing that he was really into that, because this whole album is very acoustic, but it's a rock. I mean, definitely a rock context, but played on acoustic instruments most of the time.
Wow,
Kind
it
of
just
a
keeps
Renaissance
going. Yeah, right. He's in a dude in a
And then-
doublet,
That's the beginning.
slashed doublet.
And then this fantastic 12-string guitar thing.
That was a 12-string on the Every Picture Tells a Story.
Yeah, well, and a lot of mandolin there too. So some of that's mandolin, some of it's 12-string. Maggie May is one of my favorite songs of the 70s. I mean, yes, I've heard it a million times, but I do not get tired of it. It's
so smooth.
And it's a really interesting story, and it's fairly respectful of the person too. So it's a little easier to listen to in that sense. Anyway, then I also wanted to bring up the point that the Faces have, I'm going to guess a little bit, but one of your favorite movie moments on their final album is the song at the end of Rushmore, and you'll recognize it in a moment.
Aww. This is the Faces song?
Yep.
Oh, no way.
This is Ooh La La from their
Yeah.
album of the same name. You haven't seen Rushmore yet, have you, Eric? Yeah, at the very end of the movie, this comes in. It's just so perfect after the rest of what had happened.
Oh, what a nice note to end on. Now I feel all happy inside because I can think about Max Fisher,
Yeah.
who many people dislike, but I wish he were my best friend.
Oh, I love that movie. This is the only Faces song sung by Ron Wood. This is apparently Rod Stewart took a crack at it, didn't really like the song very much. Ronnie Lane tried it, but it didn't sound right either. And they said, "Hey, why don't you give it a crack, Ronnie Wood?" And they all thought he did a great job with it. And years later, Rod Stewart has been quoted as saying that this is his favorite Faces song. Even though he didn't like it enough at the time to want to sing it himself, he's come around, and
This has been covered a lot too, hasn't it?
it may have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
sure it's been covered. It has definitely been covered. I'm not familiar with any of the covers in particular. But. Let's fade this out.